At 9:41 p.m. on the 14th of October, 1973, the quiet routine inside the Blackridge County Police Station was interrupted by a phone call that would later become one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in American investigative history. Officer Raymond Carter had been filling out paperwork when the phone rang. The station was quiet that night. Blackridge was the kind of town where crime rarely happened. Most calls involved lost pets, minor disputes between neighbors, or the occasional drunk driver on the highway. Carter answered the phone without much thought. Blackridge Police Department. For a moment, there was only breathing on the other end of the line. Then, a man spoke. His voice trembled as if he were struggling to stay calm. "There's something wrong with the lights," the man said. Carter frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The man didn't answer the question. Instead, he repeated the same sentence again. "There's something wrong with the lights." Then the line went dead. Carter stared at the phone for a moment, confused, but not alarmed. He began writing a note about the call. 30 seconds later, every light in Blackridge went out. Street lights blinked off. House windows went dark. The neon sign outside the diner vanished. The entire electrical grid collapsed at the exact same moment. For 30 seconds, the town of Blackridge sat in complete darkness. When the lights came back on, something impossible had happened. The town was empty. Before that night, Blackridge had never attracted attention. The town sat quietly between two forested hills and a valley that most travelers passed without noticing. Only about 1,200 people lived there. Generations of families had built their lives in the same small streets. Most residents worked either at the local agricultural equipment factory or at nearby farms scattered throughout the valley. Children attended the same school their parents had once attended. The diner on Main Street served the same menu it had served for 30 years. The rhythm of life in Blackridge rarely changed. Morning coffee at the diner. School buses rolling through neighborhoods. Factory shifts beginning at dawn. In a world that often felt chaotic, Blackridge felt stable, safe, predictable, which is why no one noticed anything unusual during the evening of the 14th of October. The town was simply living its life. That evening, the high school football team had just finished a home game. The stadium lights illuminated the valley as families cheered from the bleachers. The home team had won. Parents lingered to talk while students gathered in small groups, laughing and celebrating. Meanwhile, at the diner on Main Street, the late shift had begun. Factory workers filled the booths, ordering coffee and sandwiches before heading home. The cook moved quickly between the grill and the counter. Outside, the neon diner sign glowed brightly against the dark sky. Across town, televisions flickered in living rooms. Children worked on homework while parents discussed the next workday. Teenagers gathered near the movie theater, debating what film they should watch the following weekend. Everything about the night was ordinary. Nothing suggested that Blackridge was only minutes away from becoming one of the strangest unsolved mysteries in modern history. At exactly 9:42 p.m., the power grid failed. The blackout was immediate. Unlike most outages, which spread gradually through neighborhoods, this one struck the entire town simultaneously. Street lights flickered once before shutting off. Inside homes, televisions, and lamps went dark. Even the backup generator at the small medical clinic failed. For 30 seconds, Blackridge disappeared into darkness. Those 30 seconds would later become the focus of every investigation. Because when the lights returned, something had changed. The town was silent. No. Quiet. Silent. No voices echoed through the streets. No car engine started. No dogs barked from backyards. Blackridge felt abandoned. Just after midnight, 2 patrol officers drove into the town to investigate the earlier blackout. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The lights were on again. But as the patrol car moved slowly through the streets, the officers began noticing something unsettling. There were no people, no on sidewalks, no inside parked cars, no standing on porches. The streets looked as if everyone had suddenly stepped away from life itself. When the officers reached the diner, they decided to investigate. The door was unlocked. Inside, the lights were still on. The smell of burnt food hung in the air. A frying pan sat on the stove. The burner beneath it was still glowing red. The food inside had burned black, but the cook was gone. Coffee cups sat half full on tables. A newspaper lay open in a booth. Some unknown had been reading it minutes before the blackout. Officers began checking houses. Each home revealed the same disturbing scene. Dinner plates sat untouched on kitchen tables. Televisions still played late-night programs. A bathtub in one house remained filled with warm water. The person using it had disappeared. In another home, a record player continued spinning, even though the music had finished. The needle scratched against the vinyl in an endless loop. The evidence suggested something chilling. The residents of Black Ridge had not left voluntarily. They had vanished in the middle of ordinary moments. By morning, the state police had sealed off the entire valley. Investigators searched every road leading away from the town. Roadblocks were established miles in every direction. Helicopters scanned the surrounding forests. Search teams combed the hills. But there was no trace of the missing residents. No tire tracks suggested a mass evacuation. No footprints indicated people walking away. No buses or trains had passed through the valley during the blackout. Moving over 1,000 people would require enormous coordination. Yet no one had seen anything. It was as if the town's population had simply ceased to exist. 3 days into the investigation, a truck driver came forward with an unusual story. Daniel Mercer had been driving along Highway 62 that night. From the ridge above the valley, he had a clear view of Black Ridge. Mercer reported seeing the lights go out suddenly, but that wasn't what disturbed him. Seconds after the blackout, the sky above the town flashed with a strange blue glow. Lightning, no. An explosion, just a brief pulse of light. Then darkness returned. Mercer assumed it was a power surge. But when he passed the town minutes later, he felt something deeply unsettling. The lights had returned, but the town looked empty. Engineers examining the area discovered something unexpected. A system of tunnels existed beneath Black Ridge. Some tunnels dated back to mining operations that had closed decades earlier. But deeper tunnels appeared newer. Concrete reinforced the walls. Electrical cables ran along the ceiling. The tunnels were not listed on any official maps. Investigators followed the underground passageways deeper beneath the town. Eventually, they reached a large chamber. Inside were machines. Large, metal structures, surrounded by wiring and generators. Much of the equipment had been damaged, but it was clear that someone had conducted experiments in the chamber. At the center of the chamber sat a massive metal ring embedded into the floor. The ring was covered with strange symbols that investigators could not identify. Electrical equipment surrounded the structure. Scientists believed the machines had once produced powerful electromagnetic fields. If the system malfunctioned, it could explain the blackout. But it still did not explain the missing people. One physicist suggested a theory that sounded impossible. If the energy surge had been strong enough, it might have distorted space itself. Within a week of the investigation, military personnel sealed the tunnel entrances. Scientists working on the case were reassigned to other projects. The official explanation changed authorities announced that a toxic gas would evacuate forced the efforts, but the story raised more questions than answers. No evacuation had been recorded. No buses had transported residents, and no one had ever seen the people of Black Ridge again. 20 years later, for decades, the mystery faded from public attention. The town was eventually demolished. Buildings were removed. Roads were erased. The valley returned to farmland. Then, in 1993, something strange happened. A communications satellite detected a radio signal. The transmission came from the exact coordinates where Black Ridge once stood. The signal lasted only a few seconds. But analysts noticed something remarkable. The signal repeated a sequence of numbers. The signal lasted numbered numbers. The same number of people who had vanished that night. No one has solved the disappearance of Black Ridge. Theories range from secret government experiments to unexplained physical phenomena. But one fact remains undeniable. For 30 seconds, on the 14th of October, 1973, the town of Black Ridge went dark. And when the lights returned, every person was gone. If the underground experiment truly caused the event, it may not have destroyed the town. It may have moved it somewhere beyond the 30 seconds of darkness that changed everything. And if that is true, the most unsettling question isn't where the people of Black Ridge went. It is whether the same event could happen again. All it would take is 30 seconds of darkness